Hello,
Hello,
everyone.
everyone.
Happy
Hello,
Thursday.
Amy.
Thanks for joining
Hello, Amy, America, and the universe. From me, the Phantom, and Amy as Christine, the the, the ingenue of the Opera House in Paris. Yeah. So, how are you, Amy? You okay?
Yeah, I'm dealing with the migraine, as you know, and just rough morning.
Yeah.
And how's your foot? How's your foot doing?
Well, it's okay now. The pain's gone now completely. It was obviously the problem was because they made a complete botch job of the operation when I first went in. Um, you know, you still there, Amy?
Am I here? Uh-oh. Am I here?
Oh, yeah, you're frozen. Well, anyway, I'll carry on talking.
Okay.
Yeah, so as you know, I had the accident on Sunday night, and hang on a second. Right. So I had the accident on Sunday night. What happened was that I was helping my mum when she was in a wheelchair, and it buckled. You put a brake on and it buckled, and the side of the wheelchair came down on my foot. And it was. Have you ever had like an accident like that where it's like kind of delayed the pain?
Yeah.
There was like, yeah, it was like, I thought it was worse than what it was. I thought I'd lost my toe first, and then I looked and there was the open wound and that. And well, I left it too long. I should have gone straight to the hospital straight away. But I thought I could, manage it myself with plasters and a bandage and that. And yeah, when I went there, what they did at the hospital, they actually had to open it up, just to put an incision into the foot more so that they could fit the stitches in, which didn't sound, it's like that's like demonstrating a Hoover, a vacuum, making a mess on the floor to show that the Hoover's working, So they did that, and from that, that's when it was painful, and it was a case of treating the pain that they'd caused then. And they said, yeah, you'll be like this for a couple of hours or maybe a couple of days, but it'll go shortly. And it just got, as you know, I was talking to you, it just got worse and worse, and couldn't sleep with it. And I went in, and it was a different surgeon this time, but GP, and he said they shouldn't have done that. He said they're like butterfly stitches. Do you call them butterfly stitches in America? There's like difference in the stitches.
I've never had stitches, so I don't know.
This is the first time I've had them, and yeah, he said no. That what we're going to have to do. He said I've got some good news and bad news. The good news, we said we can fix this and we can make your pain go away. The bad news is we're going to have to do it without anaesthetic, which and I made an excuse then. I said actually I've got to be somewhere because I thought it was a panic. Actually I'm busy, and then he said, well, you can be like sort of in the super pain for like 15 minutes here and it'll stop. He said, oh, your pain's going to go on for days and days because it's not getting treated. So I went along with what they wanted to do. You have to take the old stitches out, which is, I'm sorry if anyone's eating it or anything. This is hardly the, for the English people. So you have to take the old stitches out, and then they have to burn off the flesh. God, this is horrible, isn't it, Amy?
They cauterized it, right? Basically, they cauterized it.
That's it, yeah, they cauterized it, and then they used surgical glue to put it back together, which the GP said that why they didn't use that in the beginning, I don't know. Maybe it wasn't available to them, but it's fine now. Although it is a problem walking, there is, because it's on a pressure point, it's on like the ball of my foot. But thanks for your support, Amy, and sending good vibes, and everyone's well wishes. Yeah,
well, of course. I was
some grapes will be nice next time. What was that, Amy? Sorry.
Yeah, I was worried about you, especially when you went to the hospital the second time, and I was like, oh my God, it's you don't want it to get infected, obviously. So I was worried about that first night, how much pain you'd be in, too.
Yeah. If anyone could lose a leg from like a splinter, it would be me. That kind of. No, your entire leg's got to come off. Like sod's law, as they say. But an experience in that, and like in one sense, something good came out of it because I've been applying for a new wheelchair for my mum for a while because it's the one that she's got now isn't very practical, and it's difficult for me to like sort of how would you say, operated on it. Well, it's difficult for me to sort of accessorize with it and that, and it's it's dangerous for me, Mum. So the one good thing that came out of it now is that the GP was able to say, you know, that this is if like people are having accidents around it and stuff, you know, surely that's the time to get a new one. So, like, you know, every you know, cloud has a silver lining, as they say.
Yeah.
And that, so that was almost worth losing the toe for, you know, but I'm joking. Yeah. So anyway,
yikes.
There's my ailments over with. How are you, Amy?
Yeah, I'm all right. Like I said, I have a headache, but it's slowly getting better. I've noticed that ever since the pandemic and the C thing, that my headaches have been worse than ever, and it makes me wonder if it's just affected me somehow. Because like I always have had headaches. I've had migraines my whole life, but now when I get them, they're resistant to pain meds, and I just have to deal with it. So, yeah, not fun. It's like, and you'll see me do this because it's in my nose, and that's the thing about like with the pandemic too. Ever since that, I've had it where it's been in my nose, so it sucks.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had kind of like nose problems as well since then as well. Like I didn't really, you know, suffer with anything like that before, but you know, it's noticeable since the pandemic that these things have been coming on.
It feels like it just keeps going around, you know. Like there's probably strains of it that are light strains, and it just goes around, and you get it, and you get rid of it, and then you're not fun. But so anyway, how much did you get any sleep the last few nights?
Sorry.
All right.
No, not much. No, I'm not much. We're just talking about building up resistance there. That was I've had insomnia on and off since I was about, I think about 8.
Yeah.
So I was put at an early age. I was put on sleeping pills to help me sleep, and like you build up a resistance to them eventually. You know, it's like I don't think children should be put on sleeping pills like that, because you know it can, you know, it can affect. Because I went into adulthood with a serious insomnia. I keep slipping down here, Amy. Sorry about that. There you go. Hang on. We with you now. Right. Yeah, so didn't get much sleep yet. This is farcical. Right. Oh. I'll be with you now. 1 second.
It has a mind of its own.
It does, yeah. It's making fun of me. Yeah. So yeah, no, I didn't get much sleep with it, because but trying to sleep through pain is. Well, you concentrate on the pain rather than getting to sleep, aren't you? Basically, and that, like, you know. But then find myself chasing sleep as well, and that's kind of annoying. Have you ever had insomnia? Ever suffered with it or anything like that?
I've had, I've had where I wake up a lot every night around 3 a.m. and then I can't sleep. But I fall asleep pretty easy. It's just that once I wake up after that initial time, then I'm awake. So it's not fun.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Once I'm awake, that's it. There's no for me. There's no chance of I'll try and get back asleep. I just know it's pointless, you know. And it can be. That's the thing. People say, "Oh, I love sleep," and you know, you're like, you must be exhausted. Yeah, you do get tired. It's not like that never changes. You do get that. You can feel it in your body and stuff like that. But your brain just like kind of, well, it's forgotten how to do it, you know. But like I say, I should never been put on sleeping tablets. Like we're talking about resistance there. She'd never been put on sleeping tablets, because your brain will just rely on them then, and it just completely forgets how to do it, you know.
See, nowadays they put kids on. They have melatonin, which that can make you.
Yeah.
I've never tried it. My fear is that because I'm very light. My brain's not working right now. I'm very sensitive, so if I've had sleeping pills before. I took them because of nausea, and because apparently Benadryl and sleeping pill, if you take that, it's supposed to help with nausea. Anyway, it just made me sleep, and then when somebody needs something, and I was knocked out, and then it takes a while to get over, because you feel so drowsy for hours. Like it affects you for hours. So I didn't like it.
It's like, I think sometimes, I mean, with sleeping tablets, you can have a sleep, wake up, and still be suffering from the effect. Not suffering, but experiencing the effects of the sleeping tablet, even though you've been asleep. frightening statistics with that, isn't it? So yeah, so Amy, I thought we've been discussing this for a while, so I thought the Phantom of the Opera would be a good like sort of subject for us to discuss, because I know in private we've done it, and that we've both got opinions on it, and that, and like, you know, we both enjoy it and stuff. So, what was your first experience with the Phantom of the Opera? Was it the musical, or had you been aware of the films or anything?
Well, I'll prelude it to. I'd heard of. See, my brain's not working. The guy Andrew Lloyd Webber, because I'd seen Jesus Christ Superstar growing up Catholic. My mother made my brother tape Jesus Christ Superstar off of like late night TV, and I watched it, and I was really touched by the movie, but also the music was incredible. You know, the songs were really beautiful, really, you know, intense.
Yeah.
And then so then I had not heard of the Phantom, and then one time there was a documentary on like 60 Minutes or something, and it was Michael Crawford. And I will tell you, didn't I tell you that I had a huge crush on him after, and I was obsessed with the Phantom of the Opera, and I got like the music, and I used to sing it. I would listen to it in headphones and sing it in my bedroom, and my mother's like, "Shut up!" So doing all the operas and stuff. But yeah, I love them. Yeah.
So mentioning Michael Crawford. So your connection to John, you must have been obviously when you found out he'd made a movie with John Lennon. That must have been quite an exciting prospect for you.
Yeah, it was. I was like, oh, it's that guy. It's the Phantom, and then he's with John and How I Won the War, and so yeah, it was interesting to have that connection too.
Yeah,
I did Michael Crawford.
Sorry, carry on.
No, I had a huge crush on Michael Crawford and the Phantom and everything. So yeah, that's fascinating that they would come together. Yeah.
Yeah, those two things. Yeah, you know, well, because we discussed the supernatural, and all roads lead back to John Lennon, as we know, Amy. But it was, you know, here's a little interesting story for you. That MEMS, run by Brian Epstein, in the 60s, had tried to buy the Dakota building for the Beatles.
Really?
Because it was, this was about 66, 67. At that point, like New York was under like a bit of strain financially and things. And people were leaving the city, and not en masse, but like it affected certain residents of the Dakota building who'd been there a long time. And at that point, they were ready to sell up and move on. And the Dakota building was put up by it was offered out to like certain people in the entertainment world and stuff like that. And Epstein became aware of it, and he suggested it to obviously the other Beatles. The idea would have been that they own each one owned like a quarter of it and stuff, and they had a certain amount of rooms and stuff. This is all pie in the sky, hypothetical things, but the reason I'm bringing this up is that John went to Spain to do I Am the War with Michael Crawford, directed by Richard Lester, and he was showing people. John had been showing people photographs of the Dakota building, and Michael Crawford's grandmother that raised him claimed clairvoyancy. She used to work as a clairvoyant, and she told John when she saw the photographs, she said to him, "It's a bad idea for you to live here. It won't end on a good note." And she said, "If you do anything," she said, do not move in that building." And it became like years later, it became a running joke with Michael Crawford and John Lennon when they bumped into one of the years later, functions and stuff. John used to like say, tell your grandmother nothing bad's happened yet and stuff like that. But then, of course, he got shot outside the Dakota building. Which I just thought that was like a nice little, well, not nice, but it's an interesting little supernatural kind of link to things, isn't it?
Yeah, but it seems like he was destined to be there. I mean, he could have chosen to. Well, he didn't like LA, right? He did live there for a while. He didn't like it. He liked New York, and that was the place that reminded him the most of Liverpool. And architecture was very similar. So, Well,
that's what people say. Like New York is like a sort of supersized 24-hour Liverpool. It's, whether there's any difference So I don't really, I don't know. Like, but I think New York to New Yorkers and Liverpool to Liverpudlians is a very like sort of cherished kind of place, isn't it? So maybe like that. Maybe that's he was drawn to.
It could, and he had a psychic. I know you know the story where his psychic told him that he was going to be killed. I don't think she said shot, but anyway, so he was always afraid. Aptly, I mean, he had every reason to be afraid. But then why did he let his guard down and whatever? But that's interesting about Michael Crawford. And so you said his mother. It was his mother. Said that to John.
It was grandmother.
Grandmother.
It was yeah, his grandmother. Yeah. Michael Crawford also was there when he wrote Strawberry Fields as well. Oh. He was one of the first people who heard it in demo form. And yeah, have you read Crawford's book? Well, obviously, I don't think you must have read Michael Crawford's book, but I'll get you a copy. I'll get a copy sent over to you, but he talks about it in length like that, because he was there at sort of the transitional period for John. He was like, kind of. It was during that period that he did first meet Yoko and things, or maybe not first met her, but Crawford was aware that he was like. He said he felt like Michael Crawford said, the course of the making that film, he said he felt like he'd been working with 4 different people, because John kept kind of like evolving from who he was into someone else. And that's a really interesting read to get like people who, not just like biographers, but people who are actually there to witness it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's when I wrote the book about John and the screenplay. That was really the whole thing that inspired me to write it, was that was the time of his life where he changed the most, and it was pivotal. I mean, the LSD started it, and then the Jesus comment. But by the time, right before he wrote Strawberry Fields, he had this massive change. He went from a complete different life, rich. He lived on Bankers Row, isn't that where he lived with the
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, just completely changed.
I just want to say, Amy's screenplay is brilliant, by the way. Nothing to get hung about to be talking about. It was what I liked about it, Amy, which I've been meaning to ask you this. No, it really is brilliant. I'm not just saying that, it is brilliant. I've read a lot of screenplays about John and the Beatles that were complete duds, and like they were just like the kind of, I don't know, jukebox kind of musicals and all that. But I felt like you really sort of tapped into something that not many people have been able to. But was because of the LSD thing, was the Lewis Carroll kind of influences? Was that kind of? Did you sit down to put that in, or did it just kind of happen naturally because you were focusing on that period? Because I thought that was a brilliant aspect to your screenplay, that kind of Lewis Carroll kind of feel. Is it not?
Yeah, that was a real challenge for me, because I remember sitting down to write that scene, and it probably took me a couple of days really, but thinking, I knew the details. He and George and Patty and Sin went to a dentist and had their coffee, and then it really was just like, let's sit down and see if I can channel all of this, but in a creative, like with my writer brain. And it was a challenge, but it was kind of amazing how it all just came out and rolled the way it did. And I don't. And but one of my favorite things is not just in the apartment, but the way that John slowly started to accept that he was having this experience, and he really invited it. Like, he was really happy about it. And of course, Cynthia was terrified. Yeah. But by the time they got to with the ad lib, or was it the ad lib? And they had guys. It's like he saw the future. He saw, and the guy's just like, don't talk to me. But anyway, what did they say? Something like, they were kind of feeding him with the line. Now, I don't know how accurate that was, but he did have 2 fans that came up and showed, and it was almost like they were helping him, like guides, helping him with certain thoughts that he was ready to accept. And that's the way it works. Once you're ready you open your mind, you're ready for a concept, people show up and they say things, or you see something or you read something and it blows your mind open, but you were ready. You were literally asking the universe. So I feel like that's John in that moment was, but the Alice in Wonderland, he loved Alice in Wonderland. I knew that. So that was always going to be an aspect of it. Eat this and get big, eat this, get small, or drink this, and, and see smoking caterpillars. And that was part of it.
Yeah, it was brilliant. By the way, is that Coco or Kieran?
That's Kieran. Yeah.
Kieran's stealing the show there. Hello, Kieran. Did you? It was. I noticed he was attacking something.
It's his
Brilliant.
blankie. Yeah, he loves his blankie.
Oh, just, yeah,
Mommy.
yeah, brilliant. Hello, Kieran. Yeah,
Hello.
yeah. No, I agree. Going back to what you said. Yeah, the Alice in Wonderland thing was. I think John's life ideally could have been like in Wonderland. I think at that point, he would have liked to have kind of, been able to do physically the things that happen in that book. So like kind of, even though LSD, it was he imagined everything. It's still gave him that ability. And like you say, he was ready, wasn't he, psychologically to experience that. Maybe Paul wasn't at that point. I'm not sure what like Paul's, but I know Paul kind of held back, didn't he? Paul didn't like sort of. He was more frightened of like the negative aspect, whereas John was more kind of throw himself in there and experience it, like you said.
You know what that is too? Like, there's a lot of with John where because he grew up so different, he didn't really have parents, not really, and he felt like he made up his own rules, and that made him the perfect leader of a band, and also a person to try whatever and not be afraid. But he was always willing to try. I mean, he was afraid, but he was willing to try. Whereas Paul had been raised much more like with his dad and more of a standard way. And also Paul had jobs. And I think that affects you, like, that mentality of, if I do bad things, I lose my job or I get in trouble. Well, John didn't have any of that. John was always ready to like, well, I don't care what people think of me, So that's a big part.
Yeah. Well, Cynthia says about when he went in our college, doesn't he? That like these tutors, people were like trembling with fear. And yet John just wasn't scared of them. John wasn't scared of them at all. Like if the worst thing he could do was like kick him out of the college, he was fine with that, And I think he had no time for like authority in that way, did he? You know what I mean? That kind of, he was always making a stand against it. But yeah, I mean, that's what like I say, I love those surreal elements of that.
I do too.
Nothing to get hung about.
Have you ever read all? Yeah. You probably read all of Alice in Wonderland, I'm sure. I
read it. I read it it's a long time since I read it, but
yeah. Me too.
It's At
the time,
is there a series of books?
Say that again.
Sorry, is there a series of books? Did Lewis Carroll write a series of books about Alice, or is it just Alice and Alice?
No.
The Looking Glass.
Alice,
because I know
Alice through the Looking Glass. And they're often together. Like
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, they're together.
Yeah. I like that. Well, I didn't like it really, but the Tim Burton remake, if you would call it a remake, it was, it was people saying it was a sequel to Alice in Wonderland, so everyone assumed it was Alice Through the Looking Glass. No, it was a sequel to that as well. It was this kind of, it happened after the event, so to speak. But I was surprised at how many Oz books L. Frank Baum wrote, because he wrote like a series of. There was like 20, I think, or maybe a bit more. Just the Scarecrow of Oz, the Tin Man of Oz, and it went on and on like that, didn't it?
They'll show up a lot when I do want to ask for messages from spirit, just like a general. They give. I do this thing where they give you passages from literature, and for some reason I get a lot of Balzac shows up. Says, and then I was thinking of the Music Man Balzac, for Mary in the Library. But then I also get a lot of Baum from The Wizard of Oz, and I personally feel like The Wizard of Oz is a movie or a book, a story that has a lot of levels that relates to awakening and what it's like to spiritually ascend. There's just so much what Dorothy goes through. She has a journey, and she has these guides, and she goes into different worlds and faces her fear, and what's home. That's a lot of that. So Baum had a lot of that connection, I feel, to the spiritual side, and it was channeling a lot. And that's why his quotes show up so much.
Yeah, is Baum from Kansas, or did he just write about Kansas? Do you know?
Probably not. I think I've looked that up before. I'll look it up right now. Let me see.
Yeah, thank you.
He had to have been enamored with Kansas.
Yeah.
Let me see, from Kansas. Let's see. Okay. Where was Frank Baum from? Chittagong. Chittenango, New York.
Chittenango.
He was in
All
that.
right.
Yeah. It happens.
Yeah.
People who don't live here think it's great.
Right. Yeah. Now, like, would you say is it a great place to live? I mean, you're like you say proud. Like, what is a Kansas person? Like a Liverpudlian from Liverpool, so a Kansian with a big O.
Well, where I live is a lot like probably kind of like Liverpool because, or where you live. You live a little bit on the outskirts of Liverpool, or like with John when he lived in Woolton, that's the outskirts of a big city. Well, where I live is like that. It's the outskirts of a big city, and we have like towns get bigger and bigger and bigger as you get towards Kansas City.
Right.
So it's very similar. And when I look around, when I see pictures, I'm like, oh, that's in the people and things. I think, oh, that's a lot like Kansas City. It's very similar. And so I don't know why, but it is. So
yeah, fascinating. Maybe that like suggests because as we know, you have got a link back to Liverpool, don't we, Amy? But we'll keep that for now. Like keep that kind of until we discover it more ourselves. By the way, do you like the gloves?
Oh, I was going to say because your hands look pale compared to your face, but yeah, I do.
It's for hypothermia. It was very Al Jolson-ish, I think. Kind of just move. Yeah. So anyway, Amy, if you go back to what we were talking about before, so do you know do you know anything about the genesis of Phantom of the Opera? There's a reason why I'm asking you this, and I'll tell you in a second what it is. Do you know anything about the genesis of it?
Well, I'll just say what my initial thoughts are. So I'm probably wrong. So I know it's a book, like a gothic novel type thing, like around Les Mis or whatever. And then I remember seeing the silent movie. I know the Lon Chaney, and then so it's had many incarnations. In fact, there's a 1950s musical film that was finally shown again last year. That's very Hollywood production of Phantom of the Opera. So that's what I know about it. And then of course Andrew Lloyd Webber made his. And then there's the movie.
He made yeah. So well, I'll tell you go a little bit back about the genesis of it. The genesis of it began actually in Italy in the Italian opera house, but it was changed to my dad crashed John's birthday party at museum in Syracuse, New York. Oh, was that at Tavern on the Green? Was that where that was? That was where John had the party in Tavern on the Green. What a brilliant claim to fame that is. I think it was that the place was Tavern on the Green. I think wasn't it where he had this in Syracuse. That name sticks in my mind for some reason. Well, that's brilliant. What do you go? That's a fantastic thing to be able to tell people, isn't it? Anywho, I'll go back to what I was saying, right? Not that I'm being dismissive of that. I'll come back to it. So anyway, Amy, it began in the Italian Opera House. It was Italian Opera. There was it's called the Everson Museum, right? Everson Museum.
Cool.
There's a place in Liverpool called Everton, so maybe that's why it was. Maybe that's why he picked it. He partied with them. Superb. Amy's partied with them, hasn't he? Quite a couple of times.
Is that the one where
dance is unfolding?
Well, there's a story, and I'll go real quick because you're telling your story. But since we're on this, there was a party. John was with May Pang, and there was a whole bunch like Alice Cooper and different people, and Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys was there, and he had his whole episode, with schizophrenia and all that stuff. And he kept going up to Brian to John and saying, "Oh, I'm a big fan of the Beatles, and I love your writing." And John was like, "Oh, thanks. We're a big fan of you too. We really love you. We really love you." And then 5 minutes later, Brian Wilson comes back. "Oh, we love the Beatles, and I'm a big fan." And John never said, "You already said that. Go sit down." He was like, "Oh, that's nice. We're a big fan of the Beach Boys too. We love your writing." John was very sweet to him, and that's one of my favorite stories about John. There's a lot of
I've heard Jan Wenner. Oh, there's a lot of grass around. Imagine, Is it Jan Wenner, the Rolling Stone writer? He said John eventually turned to him and said, "He's not well." He said that. He said I've met him about 50 times. He keeps going back like it was the first time that he met him. Shows you, doesn't it? You got compassion for kind of mental frailties and stuff like that.
I thought that was sweet.
Yeah.
And Warrior Girl says she has to go. Nice. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for coming, Warrior Girl.
Good to see you. And thanks for the story. That was a cool story.
Yeah. We can dine out on that one now. Yeah. So anyway, shall I tell the Phantom of the Opera story, Amy? Or is it? Just because we're trying to have a theme to what we were talking about. So, yeah. So anyway, in the Italian Opera House, there was an opera singer called Pauletta Gambrelli, and there was a fire at the Italian Opera House, and the lead singer, opera singer, she suffered smoke damage, and obviously she couldn't do the show, and this Pauletta came in and replaced her, and then she went on to have this superb career. But then she lived till she was like 90, and in later life she'd become a clairvoyant, and she would often travel like distances to people. She wouldn't take money for giving readings and stuff like that, and she became a bit of a legend. And Gaston Leroux, who wrote The Phantom of the Opera, he began kind of investigating it, and he was a complete atheist and cynic. He didn't believe in anything like that, but she did a reading for him, and he became convinced she was in touch with like the sort of the supernatural.
Wow.
And she told him the story that it was, to her mind, how she's seen it, was that since from an early age she'd been in tune with a libretto songwriter who believed in it and wanted her to do well as a singer, and felt that it should be her that was, sort of like the headliner at the Italian Opera House. And
yeah,
according to her, it was him that caused the fire. He didn't want to kill anyone, but he wanted damage that would result in her being able to step in and take over. And that's what happened. She went on to a great career, and Gaston Leroux then wrote it up into Phantom of the Opera. So that's how it began. But
so
the reason I thought it'd be good for the show is because yourself as a singer-songwriter yourself, and your connection to John, I thought that has got like sort of definite echoes of that kind of thing. Obviously, like circumstances are different, but essentially it's the same thing. I do believe that John recognizes the talent, and stuff like that.
Yeah, it is interesting. We've talked about how I've always sort of had this weird connection to, like even before with John, I remember seeing The Ghost of Mrs. Muir and thinking, oh, that's me. And I didn't even, that was pre. So,
yeah.
So he was dead. So she had contact with this guy. He was dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And then he burned down the theater.
Sorry, what was that? Sorry.
He burned down so his spirit burned down the theater, or like his intentions.
It's been like over the course of about 4 months that she was employed by the Italian Opera House. Strange things began to happen, and it resulted in a fire. And he communicated, just couldn't really communicated with her and said, "I didn't mean for it to go that far. I never intended to hurt anyone." But like you said, I felt like it was because they were using his text as well, as the libretto. They were using his text in the operettas and things, and he claimed that she was perfect for it. And that's where Gaston Leroux got this idea from. That you could take that kind of. But here's the interesting thing about it: that you could take that and turn that into a horror novel, because anything in those days, anything associated with the supernatural was automatically seen as horror, and it wasn't necessarily seen as like high romance. But Gaston Leroux intended to make sort of like the ultimate sort of romantic novel with it, but it kind of, the interpretation got so much that it became a horror. And the reason I'm saying this is I think it was until the Andrew Lloyd Webber production, I think it remained a horror in people's minds. With the Andrew Lloyd Webber musical, like the romantic elements came back to it a lot more, I think. And it's recognized as being as a romance as well as being whatever else it is now.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely like it has that Beauty and the Beast type of thing, which that story itself, women love. It's weird. They had that show, Beauty and the Beast. It was a TV show, so it wasn't the cartoon, and women apparently just loved that show. So it has that same sort of appeal of the.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's weird, but it's very.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you. I mean, when you became, I mean, when you first saw when you first heard the songs of Phantom of the Opera, had you developed your own sort of psychic skill? Were you aware of them then, at that point when you first heard Phantom of the Opera?
No, that was
Right?
before. It was before. But I remember I was obsessed with the silent movie and all of that. So I don't know. It's fascinating. It just kind of gives you little Easter eggs or pre little notes that tell you along the way what's going on. Maybe what your higher self
Yeah.
is trying to tell you. But I, you
Yeah.
know, it's some people would say like, look at Twilight. You know how Twilight was extremely popular, and
Yeah.
the lead character Edward, who is a vampire, was also called extremely stalkerish, but it's kind of like it's that same thing in Phantom of the Opera where he's always watching over her and has
Yeah.
superpowers. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, undoubtedly, there is a kind of there is a frightening element to it, isn't there? You know what I mean? There is like a sort of sinister kind of. Well, obviously there is because it's a horror, like, but like I suppose like woke culture and stuff like that. It's not good enough that he was in love with her. He was killing people. He dropped the chandelier on the audience, and whatnot. But so it wouldn't get wrote today, I would imagine. But like I'm saying, I think that's really what Gaston Leroux was trying to do. Was trying to say that there is a love story to this, despite whatever else goes on. The two of them are in love, and it just going back reading it. I read it every year, the novel, because it's like Phantom of the Opera is kind of like my Star Wars. It's one of the things that kind of I've constantly been like sort of interested in, and I would like to work in future on like sort of Phantom of the Opera themed projects and stuff. But that was the thing. Going back reading it since I've met you this time, I definitely got a sense of that, like the similarities between your sort of situation with John and maybe with other people, and it became obvious to me that the clairvoyant element is there in the book.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't have written. You mean the book I wrote about John?
Yeah, no, I meant the Phantom of the Opera itself. The way, it's apparent there. And God, you really look like Kate Bush now, Amy.
Oh, I'm still got my headache though, so you have to bear with me a little bit. I'm not quite myself.
That's okay,
right
yeah. That's okay.
But
we're very grateful that you're here, Amy.
Thank you. So, Kate Bush, she definitely mirrors a lot of that Phantom of the Opera type of energy, which, as I've said, she's very dramatic, her body, the way she moves is like, obviously she was a dancer. That's very obvious. But the things that she writes about are aligned with that type of thing of the mystery man. And then I think a lot of writers have stolen from her. Tori Amos, we've talked about, she stole from her sound and even like her movements.
Yeah, it's interesting. She was discovered by Pink Floyd, Dave Gilmour of Pink Floyd.
Oh wow!
He was friends with a brother, and he just happened to hear him playing piano and hear the voice.
Very talented.
And he basically got her to record the demo, presented it to EMI, and then she was signed. But the commission she got from the signature, with the money she got, she actually paid for dance lessons with Lindsay Kemp, who was David Bowie's mime teacher, and so she put it into good use. Like she rather than just blow it on whatever, like a teenager would do, she put it up. She had like this sort of like kind of plan what she wanted to do with it, and everything she did, she was learning from it and things like that. But like I said, when I compared you to it, Amy, someone said, "Well, I don't know whether in America they understand like kind of quite the impact she's had over here." Over here, she's kind of, you would say, like a kind of female David Bowie. That's the kind of thing she is.
Well, yeah,
and the red hair, of course.
Well, I've always had her on my radar because I think there's something about, and let's go to that connection again. I used to be obsessed with that silent movie version of Phantom of the Opera. So I really loved that look. And I tried to do that look. And so the first time I saw Kate Bush, I was like, oh, that's that look. It's a stupid connection. But But that's interesting that you picked up on that, and I said that immediately. Oh, well, I remember blah 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 blah, and I tried to look like that, and Kate Bush looks like that, and it's just something I don't know. Maybe it's a past life thing. It could be.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it is. It's like that kind of like the kind of otherworldliness and that, or being aware of things in the past and that, and
Yeah.
like maybe perhaps not existing just in the now, if that makes sense, and that kind of you know what I'm saying, not existing just in the now, like sort of reference in the past in the way, like kind of the way you are and stuff like that. But you did art at college as well, didn't you? Did you tell me, Amy? You did do art at college.
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of that. Yeah, I totally understand people who are into the arts, and that's me. I'm not your accountant person. So yeah, my brain's always been the artistic brain, and sometimes that's a bad thing because let's say, and we'll get back on the topic, but let's say that like loving Phantom of the Opera and being obsessed with it in high school when everybody else was probably listening to rock bands or whatever, or rap and all of that, and I'm like in my room listening to Beethoven and then Phantom of the Opera. So I've never quite been the normal whatever, and I think that's that art brain that's just different. You know, we run different.
I'm exactly the same. I'll give you a little example. At the moment now, the number one program in the world, the number one TV program in the world now, in terms of popularity, is Doctor Who, right? Yeah. And it's huge over the world. It's big in America now, but it's just changed the lead actor. I became a fan of Doctor Who. There was a 16-year period where the BBC didn't make it, and I think it was 1989 to 2005, I think it was. And if you admitted liking Doctor Who in that time, you were like a social leper. People, because it had gone away, and like there was audiences who hadn't been brought up on it and things like that. And if you'd admitted to anyone that you liked it, it was like the most uncool thing you could be into. But it's interesting because people formulated that opinion and they hadn't seen it and didn't know what it was. But now it's like it's the height of cool now. It's kind of something that's kind of counterculture has actually become popular culture. It's interesting.
Franchise now.
Yeah, and that kind of like you keep saying, they've put a Disney own it now, so it'll probably get franchised even more in the coming years and stuff like that. But yeah, so it wasn't cool to be into Phantom of the Opera then, you saying, Amy, when it first came out and that when you discovered it.
I must have been the only teenager that watched that special because I literally was like the only one who seemed to be obsessed with it. And then it caught on more, I would say, later on, years on. But yeah, I did seem to be the only one. I find that so strange. But I think you probably had to be in the New York Broadway scene and London and all that. So.
Yeah. And I was into it as well, but I was, we're closer to the Titanic than what we are to one another. So, it was kind of difficult one, but hey guys, happy Thursday. Oh, thank you. Thanks, Creature of Ether. Yes, I'm feeling a lot better now. Thanks, and thanks for your well wishes as well. That's very nice of you. Yeah, I'm feeling better now. Yeah, and they gave me just a little anecdote. I told you about yesterday what happened on the train.
Yeah.
They gave me. Have you heard of Tramadol? I don't know whether it's manufactured in. It's Tramadol. It's like it's a very powerful painkiller. Partly it's 10 times the strength of heroin, and I really didn't want to take it because I was worried something had happened. And I was told basically once you've taken this, get in and go. Just stay in for the rest of the night.
Mm-hmm.
What happened to me was I had a fit of laughter on the train when I was coming home, which is really embarrassing. And you can't stop yourself from laughing. It's like kind of you just like. You become like kind of obviously like the center of attention and that. But I was thinking about we were talking about Steve Urkel the night before, and someone on the train dropped this bottle of Coke, then picked it up and opened it, and it sort of like sprayed everywhere. And I kept laughing and laughing at the thought of it like that. And I could see he was getting annoyed at me because I wasn't laughing at him per se. I was laughing, thinking that was like a very sort of Steve Urkel thing to do. And then I was like, have you seen the Joker with Joaquin Phoenix, where he's got that condition where they can't stop. That's what it was like. And then as soon as I realised it, possibility, it was the medication that made me feel like that. It was kind of, it stopped. I realised it was like, and it was okay. But yeah, laughter like that is a very kind of, it can get you into trouble, can't it?
But then you said,
what did he say to me?
No, but you had other people laughing with you, right? So you weren't laughing alone.
Oh yeah, they started laughing at me. Yeah, it was it was a woman started laughing, and then someone started laughing at us. Mm-hmm. So I was laughing at them, and they were laughing at me, laughing at them. That makes no sense whatsoever. What I've just said there, but that's what it was. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that was one of the pluses of nearly having your foot amputated, I suppose. Yeah, but I'm glad. Oh, carry on. Sorry.
Well, I was going to say, at least you had some good moment come out of it, because yeah, that was kind of scary, and you were in a lot of pain. So it's good that you can laugh at it.
That's it. I mean, it's one of those things, isn't it? That like, I wonder if like when a doctor tells you exactly what they're going to do, mm-hmm. like you start panicking with anticipation, don't you? I mean,
yeah.
Thank God it's like at no point in my life would I have to give birth, because I think they just have to put if it was me, do you know what I mean? Is it painful, Amy? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, it's pretty painful. It's what they do is really painful. My doctor came in and broke my water and I remember that's when the pain got really bad. But what they do is they put monitors on you, and then you see the contractions, and it's like this little mountain that starts, the thing goes up for the pain. And I remember looking over, and it takes your breath away, like, oh no, not another one. That's literally why they tell you to breathe, because you have to breathe. So I remember, so I was like, get my epidural, which is dangerous because they have to put a little needle into a spot in your spine that if they put it in wrong, you could be paralyzed. That's why a lot of women don't do it, obviously. But it's supposed to be safe, though. And I did it, and I was like, bring that epidural. That's when you start to cuss. You're like, where's the fucking epidural guy? And when he comes in, they do it. They put the little needle in your back and so it numbs you everything down. You can still kind of feel, but it takes away those contractions. And I remember I was like, I see them, but I don't feel them. And this is great. But it's still scary. The whole thing.
So it is good in that respect then. But like, yeah. Did they tell you? I mean, were you aware that the epidural was that potentially dangerous before you had it, or like? Yeah. I suppose they have to tell you, don't they, just in case something was to go wrong?
And you have to sign papers and everything. So yeah.
Yeah, this is fascinating. Like I say, I don't think I could. Thank God I don't have to cope with it. But like we were saying about Germaine Greer, Germaine Greer. Do you know the feminist Germaine Greer? She said that.
Yeah.
Remember, she was on a program, and there was sort of the head of the certain feminist movement was theorizing that God was a woman, and whether he has a sexuality, I don't, gender rather, I don't know. But she said no. She said I can't imagine God being a woman, because he wouldn't have put other women through the pain of childbirth. which kind of it's an interesting one, isn't it?
But I mean, I think that it's a dual entity, a dual gender, really. That because they say we are the image of God, so of course God would have to be female too. So came out of something, some sort of I say both.
He has to be everything, doesn't he? It's just like, for instance, I mean, the cat and the internet exists, but I don't know, like, the cat doesn't know what the internet is. It's got no like conception of it. So yeah. So I'm solving the universe's problems here. Well, like one thing at a time. Amy, going very philosophical, like cod philosophy there. But so epidural. I didn't actually know that about the epidural, that it was that dangerous. How long has an epidural been going for? I'm asking you this, like you've got like the entire history of like medicine, but is it hundreds of years old, or is it like a recent, like kind of more common thing?
No, I think that let's say just via books and movies, that what they would do with women is they would give them ether, and so the ether would knock a woman out. And I don't know how you would give birth after you're knocked out. I mean, your body knows
Yeah.
what to do, but still, that's when I hear that, I think, oh my God, you wouldn't even be able to push. So like my mother had cesarean sections, and she said that for all of them, they just gave her ether and knocked her out, and that was like in that time, that's kind of what they did, and then that's scary though, and that sort of takes all the power away from the woman, and you had, anyway.
Yeah, Creature of Ether might know more about this. That's the name. So
true. And
there you go.
Here.
Oh, thank you, Fatima. Thank you. Very nice of you. Yeah. Sorry we went down that path there, Amy, about
maybe there's some relevance to it. But so how did you, Jamie, how did you find Phantom of the Opera? You probably read the book, you said, right? Was the book before you saw the play or the movie? And I'm rubbing my head with this thing because I've got my headache.
That's okay. I'll send a little bit of powers your way to cool it. Yeah, I'll start doing it as well. Just I'll concentrate. There you go. So my introduction to Phantom of the Opera was again, go back to Michael Crawford. Michael Crawford did, now this is, I can't emphasize this enough, he did a character in the 1970s called Frank Spencer in a sitcom called Some Others Do Have 'Em, and he was kind of a modern day Buster Keaton with a personality to go with it, and he regularly got something like 30 million viewers in England watching Some Others Do Have 'Em, and he won the BAFTA for it and things like that. And he was fantastic. His performance was brilliant, but it meant that he was typecast to a degree, which kind of sounds silly when you consider the fact that he'd already won the Juvenile Oscar in the 60s, and he'd already made films like How I Won the War and A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum with Buster Keaton, and Hello Dolly. He'd already done that with Gene Kelly.
Yeah.
So my first, it was one of the first times that I appreciated what actors do, and I was fascinated by the technique of acting. Was the fact that I'd watched, I think it was an awards night where he was on, and he performed Phantom of the Opera and Music of the Night, and I thought it was brilliant. I thought it looked cool and that, and I loved the songs, and I loved the way it was presented. And then someone said to me, "That's Frank Spencer," Frank Spencer being the character he played, and it confused me for one, but at the same time, it fascinated me. That was the first time that I thought, there's, people. I think I was attracted to like the kind of the chameleon-like effect of it.
Yeah.
Like being able to change like that. So that started my fascination with the Phantom, which has led where it is. But I've enjoyed most interpretations of it, of the tale. I still think it's got the potential is to still do brilliant things with it. It's like you can kind of, it does translate well, the storyline. I think you could do a Disney movie, like a children's Disney cartoon version of it, but also you could do like a sort of an ultra violent horror film as well. It lends itself to like kind of broad kind of spectrum of things. But that was my first introduction to it. But also, Crawford for me, I think he's my all-time favorite performer. I think purely based on what I've just said. The man's so versatile. But it's interesting that in America, because he's primarily known for Phantom of the Opera, he's kind of considered a bit of a sex symbol, isn't he? And obviously, you said you had a crush on him, and whereas over here, even though people appreciate the fact that he went on to do the Phantom of the Opera, he's, in the eyes of many, he's still Frank Spencer. It's like depending on what area you saw first. I mean, because I actually know people who's like are familiar with the Phantom of the Opera who don't like Frank Spencer because of it. They can't get used to him.
Yeah, it's
like,
either or.
Like that, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to them, and vice versa. People say, you still get people now saying it's Frank Spencer singing, and that. But in actual fact, he started out in the opera company when that was his first. He was part of a chorus with, I think it was Benjamin Britten's opera youth in Britain. So he actually had training for it from a young age. that didn't put him in good stead years later. But yeah, that was my first introduction to it. Would be through that. But then I sort of the clincher for me was the Lon Chaney version of the silent movie version, which I still think is fantastic. I think it's brilliant. Fun fact: Andrew Lloyd Webber owns a castle a couple of miles from me. I knew who he was before I knew who he was.
Oh, wow.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Whereabouts is that then, creature of ether? Actually, you don't have to tell us. I'm not going to turn up and burgle your house or anything.
She's in I believe she's in Ireland. So
right.
So
Ireland's beautiful. Ireland is yeah.
No, but he's got big eyebrows. She probably notices big eyebrows. I'm like, who's this guy?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You know, he's a funny one, Andrew Lloyd Webber, because he divides people. You know, there's kind of it's
Tipperary.
County Tipperary, brilliant, fantastic. Yeah, well, that's not far from Liverpool. I mean, I wouldn't want to swim there, like, but you know, it's quite close. Yeah. What's it like living there, creature of ether? Do you enjoy? I presume you're still there. And one of the best holidays I ever had. I went to Dublin when I was 21, and it was fantastic. It was the most like fun I think I've had on a trip like that, you know. But then there was a lot of alcohol involved. Yeah. You said you'd like to go to Ireland, didn't you, Amy? You'd like to visit one day.
Yeah, I've always wanted to go, and Scotland too. But yeah, I definitely have family ties to Ireland, and I very much feel myself to be Irish, and so, and I you know what, I think John did too. I think that John definitely embraced his Irish roots, which were mostly on his father's side, from what I've read. I love it. I haven't traveled much, but home. Well, it's beautiful in Ireland. You know, who wouldn't want to go there and see it? And
I know.
Conan O'Brien. You know, have you ever seen where Conan goes to Ireland and every other place is called O'Brien's, and he's like, I'm really, you know. I can't even say everything he said because he just said so much, but he's just hilarious, and I love that. And when he goes up to the castle and it's super windy, and you think, how the hell did people live like that? It's just crazy.
Yeah, his hat blows off, doesn't it? I think yeah, and in the last shot, you see him running after it, but like nearly going off a cliff. Yeah, brilliant. I like Family Guy where they went to visit their Irish relatives, and it's just an Irish version of Peter Griffin. Except, you know, Peter Griffin's dog's called Brian, but in the Irish fellas, it's called O'Brien. That was,
of course.
Like a nice little you can see Liverpool from the top of the
Nice.
Just kidding. There you go.
Just kidding.
So, yeah, I'm glad you said you were kidding, creature of ether, because I would have been looking out to see if I could see your house with my binoculars. Yeah.
Well.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful place, Ireland. It's somewhere I would recommend going if you haven't been.
Oh yeah,
totally.
It's nice.
Yeah, let's go together, Amy.
All right, we'll do that.
Yeah,
we'll start.
Could you put us up as well? Do you think?
Maybe.
Yeah, put us up. Yeah. In fact, could you send us money for the tickets? Just we'll pay you back, don't we? Yeah. So whereabouts it? I mean. Yeah, there you go. So it's like kind of like, what would you say? What's like the best vacation you've ever been on, Amy?
Well, sadly, I've never. Okay, this is gosh, I hate telling this story. Well,
sorry.
I live near Colorado, but the problem is here's Kansas, right? Here's Kansas, like this square, and it's really flat. And we do have some beautiful prairies, and you know, there's some hills, but most of the time it's flat and boring. And I live in Missouri, which is hilly and beautiful. And then all the way like 8 hours away is beautiful Colorado with the mountains. So if I want to go anywhere, you know, it's kind of, if I want to go see beautiful Colorado, I have to drive 8 hours of boring nothing. And okay, so my favorite trip, I've I love Colorado. Okay, so I wanted to go to France. My aunt said that she would take me to France with her, and I saved my money, and then
Oh no.
I got married and spent my money on, and I remember my mother's like, "That's very sensible," but now I'm pissed because I didn't go to France.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah,
Wish I'd gone to France.
yeah, yeah. So you never. I take it you haven't been there then. That you didn't go later on.
Yeah, I still want to go. I want to go to France, Ireland. I wanted to go to Italy for a long time. I've always wanted to go to England to see, of course, because the Beatles and all of that. So
yeah. Well, we're going to do that eventually, aren't we? Going to should say come back to Liverpool. No, actually, I've told you this before, but my uncle actually runs the Magical Mystery Tour bus. You know that.
Great.
See, there's connection. It's weird. Like kind of. You just scratch the surface. I've got relatives who are like kind of, associated with the Beatles in lots of different ways and stuff. But he actually runs the Magical Mystery Tour bus, and she's agreed anyway. Sure, no problems.
All right.
But
screenshot it and
expect us there at the weekend then. when we finish this, let's just go, Amy.
All right. What about your foot?
Yeah, I went to. Yeah, I said I went to Australia and.
Oh, nice.
I mean, it's a lovely place, but it's just the journey there's a nightmare. It was, it's just too long.
I bet.
Yeah. I mean, it's strange. It was like, I'm trying to think to myself, what else could you do other than that's the only way you can get there, isn't it? But it's a kind of, especially if you get jet lag and stuff, it's very difficult kind of endurance test. So you've never been to New York, you said, Amy?
No, I want to go. Like I said, my grandmother was from there. She was an orphan. My mother lived there. So I have, I feel like I have these ties to New York, and I'm always in, of course, John. I would love to go through Central Park, and I would love to see just all, I've always wanted to see the Statue of Liberty. So I want to go to New York. I've always kind of wanted to go to California. I've been to Seattle, so I've been up to Washington. I've been to Texas. Right. Yeah.
So what's Seattle like? Seattle, I mean,
it's beautiful.
I can imagine. I'm familiar with it from Frasier. I know that's not like the like sort of the best tourist thing, to think about. But it's a nice place, is it? Yeah. Baby sex.
What would he got here? I don't know what's going on.
Baby sex.
Hello.
Well, that's interesting.
Well, anyway, so have you ever been to America, Jamie?
No, I haven't been to America now. But like kind of, I've always felt like it's my destiny to get there. Like I've always been able to kind of like without having a plan in any way, but like kind of that's always been part of like kind of dream destinations. Like my ultimate dream would be to live over there and work over there, and I've always felt more kind of connected to America than England. Like maybe that feeling like kind of not that I don't belong as such, but like the country just biding me time to kind of till I get there. So I better hurry up because I'm 40 now. But it's if you know what I mean. That's how it feels. Kind of like if I could do anything in life, that's what I would like to do.
Well, I mean, America is beautiful. There's, we have our problems, but apparently, you look around and everybody's got problems. Every country has its issues. And I was thinking last night about, how Italy kind of gets by without having any drama. They're just, Italy's just Italy, And then Kanye West has been there. He married that Italian woman, and now that's all. They have all this drama there because of him and her, and I just think that's hilarious that Italy's having to deal with Kanye West. I don't know. That cracked me up last night.
Yeah, so they haven't banned him or something like that, isn't it? Kind of. Kanye West. Did I send you the video of him with Freddie Mercury?
If you did, I don't remember, and so maybe not.
There's a video. There's a video of Kanye West singing Bohemian Rhapsody at Glastonbury,
Oh
and
gosh.
someone's into pictures of footage of Freddie Mercury laughing at him to make it look like he's kind of. So pretentious for him to try and take that like a song like that on, isn't it? That kind of thing. But I'll send you the anyway. Maybe I think you might find it quite funny.
All right.
But
Okay.
yeah, sorry, we can do an old magical mystery tour. Yeah, start looking for the bus. There you go. Well, it's in the clouds, the bus. So look overhead. Let's plan this now. Yeah.
Well, thanks, Heather. Well, we may take you up on that, and that's funny. We're skipping, but you know how when the Beatles did Magical Mystery Tour, and it was supposed to be like a 2-day thing, maybe a weekend thing, and it started to get around the word, and so all these Beatles fans were at every stop that they went to. So John got pissed off and like slapped something over the side of the bus. I mean, how could you miss it anyway? But he slapped something over where it said, Beatles or whatever.
Yeah, I always think, line that sums him up perfectly. I don't want to face it, where he says, "You're looking for oblivion with one eye on the Hall of Fame." And that's genius, isn't it? Like you're saying, in the '60s, he resented people sort of invading his privacy. Yet at the same time, he had a psychedelically painted Rolls Royce that he used to get drove around in that, like you couldn't miss. But yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah, like kind of, I think at that point it would have been impossible for the Beatles to do anything, wouldn't it, without kind of a mob forming.
Definitely. So, okay, so there was a picture today of, it was Paul and a teenage fan. It was while they were filming Magical Mystery Tour, and he was sitting next to the conductor, Mr. Bloodvessel. And the fans like this, And I said, "Wow, she met Mr. Bloodvessel."
That's brilliant. Yeah, not looking at the obvious thing. Yeah. Do you like the Magical Mystery Tour film? I know we've like sort of broached it before.
I do like it because whatever, if it's because I'm connected to John or I think like him, I've always enjoyed like how he won the war, Magical Mystery Tour, all of it. I've always enjoyed that surreal type of thought process and imagery, and that the Magical Mystery Tour was just a big jaunt through. Nothing made sense. There was no part of it that really made sense, and it was just fun. And I liked the music, and it was psychedelic, and I loved that. I thought that was a really cool period. So yeah, I loved it. I love the humor. I find a lot of humor in that.
Yeah, I love it too. It's interesting, isn't it, that kind of Brian Epstein, I don't know whether artistically he didn't believe in it or whatever, but he pushed back, didn't he? He tried to get them to consider doing something else and that. Yeah. And like, it's interesting that people talk about Paul becoming the kind of de facto manager of the band after Brian Epstein died. Like, I think that was a stroke of genius on his behalf, that getting that into production, because he knew that people, like, while they were making it and recording the music, like, they knew that John wouldn't have time to wallow and sort of,
I agree,
go deeper into depression. So I think that's like, it's like the fact that the film exists is testament to Paul's genius in that respect. I mean, it's kind of, I Am the Walrus too, was the song that was recorded straight after Brian Epstein died. And, Paul could just have easily just like sort of concentrated on one of his own songs, but he sort of he cared enough. He knew about John's, how frail he would be mentally, and wanted him to kind of have something to concentrate on. And that's why I've always thought that his voice in I Am the Walrus, it's particularly snidey and kind of raw, and you can tell there's a bit of anger there as well in the way he's like in the delivery and that. I think that comes across well.
Yeah, totally. He it's very sort of in your face, and maybe Dylan-y a little bit, like Dylan, but it sort of pre-echoes to Give Me Some Truth. It has a lot of that feeling. Give Me Some Truth is like much more direct, obviously. But I was going to say something about the whole Alice in Wonderland thing, and with Penny Lane, when they have that scene and they're out there with the table, and they have the horses and they have the table that's set up like the Mad Tea Party, or the Tea Party with the Mad Hatter. that I think that must be an Alice in Wonderland reference right there. But it was Paul's song. But yeah. And then John, he has the.
Do you know my favorite bit? Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's my favorite bit of the clip in the entire.
Yeah, I love that.
But where he hands Paul his glasses, because that's it goes back to from the earliest days, right? He was constantly losing his glasses, wasn't he? And so Paul used to put them in his pocket so that he wouldn't lose them. Here they are 10 years later, they're the biggest thing on the planet, and they're kind of he still cares about them in kind of brotherly, kind of protective way. And I love little moments. That's why I love to Get Back so much, because it was those little moments that came to the fore. I mean, you could tell, contrary to the narrative that they hated one another at the end and all this, that you could tell that whatever happened after they split, when they were together, there was still that kind of there's no other word, but there was still that love there between them.
Yeah,
and I think it's obvious. It's still there on Paul's behalf. I think Paul's still, I don't think Paul's ever recovered from it. Perfectly honest, from losing John, or maybe from the Beatles splitting up.
Yeah, I agree. And you've seen it where they asked Paul after John died, and we're on the topic again, and he's like, "That's a drug, isn't it?" And everybody's like, "Why would he say that?" Well, what are you supposed to say? I mean, honestly, there's no words for what, you're supposed to just stand there and cry. I mean, some people do.
Not only that, they were going to, the British press, as it was in the news media, they were going to persecute him anyway, and they were going to, no matter what he said, if he'd come out with this big soliloquy off the top of his head, if he'd said something like, "My life will never be the same," they would have criticised him for that. They just said over melodramatic comments by Paul, that kind of thing. And essentially what he was saying was, get out my fucking way. Mm-hmm. How do you fucking think I feel? My best mate's just been killed, like that. And I don't want you to come up to me and ram a microphone in my face and ask for my opinion, because you're not going to get it. Also, with Paul, this is a man, since his mother died, who'd hid his feelings.
Right.
And whatever he else, I mean, to a point. I mean, whatever he'd felt inside when it came to grief or bereavement, outwardly he didn't show, and that wasn't going to change. To some newsman, a matter of hours after John had been killed, he wasn't going to break that. When he broke, and when when that moment came where he couldn't keep it in anymore, it was always going to be in private. It was always going to be with Linda or George Martin or someone. It was never going to be for the benefit of the media soundbite, so to speak. And it actually went down really badly in Liverpool because he did get persecuted for that. And they were saying, people were saying, it's a drag. The world isn't going to see it as a drag. And in Liverpool, people were saying, you should have left him alone. Leave him alone to grieve. And he doesn't have to put himself in that position. It would have also at that point, I've always thought that he was probably afraid for his own safety as well, Paul, at that bit. Probably thinking, am I next? Or, and that caused him to have his guard up even more, I feel really sorry for him in that scene.
Yeah, people are too harsh. He's shown his grief in many ways, and also by honoring John in many ways that couldn't have been captured in one perfect statement ever. He's made up for it in his own way. I didn't get to buy the book because it was, $80, but that book of photography that Paul had that came out this year, I got to look through it at Barnes and Noble because someone had ripped open the plastic, and I was like, yes. And those pictures that Paul took of John that nobody else could take.
Who knows?
They're really beautiful.
Who knows, Amy? Maybe he'll get it for Christmas.
We'll see. Oh gosh.
Who knows?
Who knows?
I'm saying nothing. Yeah.
Well,
sorry, I cut you off there though. Yeah.
The pictures that he took of John were extremely poignant and beautiful in a way that I don't think anyone else could have ever taken those pictures besides maybe John's mother or a wife or someone. They were really, I've never seen him captured that way, and that was Paul's eye that captured him. And I think that says a lot about how Paul does love him and how Paul saw him.
absolutely,
really
yeah.
great partner. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. And that's kind of like that's why I sort of like his respect his kind of stance on not working with Julian to a degree, because like Paul, like why would they want to do that? Why would they want to put Julian through all that? But
Oh, yeah.
if you're thinking that if I wrote with Julian, we're going to recapture what I had with John, you're badly wrong, because
I know. I hate that too.
it's that. As someone who's ridden horses all their life, I love seeing the Beatles on horseback. That was surreal for me.
I know. I love it too.
Brilliant.
They had a little trouble getting the horses to behave. But yeah, I love it too. I love that whole video for Penny Lane. And of course, and let me just say this, because I had it in the book, and this is a revelation that I had. I don't know if it was before I wrote the book, but Paul and John had to write a retrospective. That was like the summer assignment for Paul and John. A retrospective, and John had already did In My Life, but okay, so he wrote Strawberry Fields, and then Paul wrote Penny Lane. And so he comes back and he hears Penny Lane, and Paul's like, "What do you think of it?" And John's like, "It's pornographic. That's what I think of it." If you listen to the words of Penny Lane from the very beginning, there's a lot of sexual reference in the song, and it's funny that everybody's like, "Oh, it's so innocent. It's about Penny Lane." Yes.
Yeah. Well, Penny Lane itself, I presume you know what the phrase, what it meant. I mean, there's a reason. There's a reason why they chose that for the song. Because you think about it, Penny Lane is closer to John's house than it was to Paul. It was kind of mainly middle class people around there in Penny Lane. It's to this day, it's like considered like kind of sort of highbrow, kind of prestigious shops and stuff like that. But Penny Lane itself, I'm not going to. I mean, you know what I'm talking about, Amy. But
it's a slave trade, right?
Penny Lane itself, it's a euphemism for something. Penny Lane, but the fishing finger pipe. Are you thinking of that?
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking of just like from the very in Penny Lane, there is a fireman with an hourglass, and there's a portrait of the Queen. He likes to keep his fire engine clean. It's a clean machine, and things. Sorry, but things like that. I mean, just throughout the first of those phrases, but also, okay, so you get past that. So John's reaction was, it's a dirty song, and Paul's like, you think anyone will catch on? Well, to this day, not everybody has. The song itself is a beautiful song, and it captures a really British, from an American, it's very British sounding, and in that beautiful way. And the horses sort of represent the whole of England and the Queen and the knights. They look like 4 knights on their horses riding through town, and it's really beautiful.
Yeah, that's true. That actually, you've brought up a good point there, actually, and that it is very sort of innuendo, kind of double entendre, and yet there was songs that kind of were less kind of not graphic, but they were less in that ilk, that were banned. Like, and so it was clever actually that got over, and Penny Lane was able to be played on on radio stations and stuff, because people were looking in other areas, weren't they? And that, and because in A Day in the Life, the Turn You On line, that was considered sexual, but it was a drug reference, wasn't it?
For which one again?
Sorry?
For what was the reference? What song?
Day in the Life, I'd love to turn you on. Farewell, creature of the yeah. Oh, she's clearing up the spare room for us anyway, Amy.
Maybe so. Bye, Heather.
Yeah. I'll bring a sleeping bag. It was considered like the sort of the executives on the radio stations that I'd love to turn you on live from A Day in the Life. That's a disgusting reference to sex and that, but it was actually a drugs reference, wasn't it? Turning you on to.
Yeah, it's a drug. That's because that's what they said. I would love to turn you on. Turn on your mind, be with it, get hip. Yeah. Because when people would drop acid, it wasn't pot so much. With acid, it was getting turned on to the universe, like literally turning a light on, and everything about the universe, and you're connected to everything and all. And a lot of people, in a way, I would say that it would be good for everyone to have LSD. I've never had it because my brain is so weird. I've always felt like I don't know if I need to do that extra step too, because I'm really out there. But it has, I've noticed that people who are like acid people are, if they don't get onto Grateful Dead or something, other than that, they're like very understanding, very chill. Like they see everyone's core being, and I think that's really beautiful. So, I
Yeah,
find that.
it's a positive thing in that respect, isn't it? And I've done it once.
Yeah.
I think I've told you this before. It was they asked me I was asked to play in a charity cricket match, and I was hopeless at cricket and that, and my nerves got the better of me, and I took LSD then, and by all accounts, I was amazing at playing cricket. I was hitting I was batting every ball, and I was hitting every wicket and that. And, I was so good that I was asked back the next week to play it again. And I was thinking at that point, well, maybe I've found my vocation in sports. Maybe this is the one. And I went back the next week, and I was absolutely dreadful without LSD. It makes you wonder, sports people who do take drugs. It makes you wonder how exciting it'd be if all of them were on the same kind of level. The kind of how fast they were going. But yeah, I agree with you. If it has a beneficial side to it, then it's worth. Is John talking to you now, Amy? It looked like he was saying something.
I just remembered this when I worked with this. It was a brother and sister, which is awkward as I say this story. But the sister had the story about the '60s. She would tell me stuff, and she's like, "Oh yeah, my boyfriend and I dropped acid, and we made love all night." And I'm like, "Oh my god, like all night, literally all night." And that's the type of thing where you hear about and you're like, wow, that's, it really gets out of hand, these people, but
yeah,
that's the '60s for you, no judgment.
Well, I told you about what happened there at the my school leaving party. Shall I tell that story again?
Yeah.
Well, Viagra had just come on the market then, and people were taking it just to see what happened. Even if there wasn't the promise of sex, people were just seeing kind of like reference point and all that, so they could make a joke about it. But one of our friends lost a bet, and his forfeit was to take 10 Viagra tablets in one go, and it went horribly wrong. It was we had to get an out, and he was in agony with it, and it was. I can't say too much without being explicit, really, but it was a sight to see, and he was in a terrible way. He was crying and that, and his sister said, she said, "Oh, stop fucking crying. We go through this every month," because to her mind, that's what he was crying about. But yeah, I wonder. I mean, presumably you can die of too much Viagra, I suppose, couldn't you? It's a horrible thought.
Probably, I mean, it could affect your heart, like the blood flow and all of that stuff. Oh boy. Yeah. Well, anyway, all I know is that it's not recommended. When you hear those ads and you hear the disclaimers, like if an erection lasts for more than 5 hours, see a doctor. It's like, that's crazy. It's crazy.
I think my friend is still going now. Actually, I think judging by the way you reacted. Yeah, but it was he's a braver man than me. I don't think that would put me off. I think just doing it. Not that I'd ever need it.
Okay, so we're getting way off topic. We'll bring this back in just a moment.
Sorry.
There's a YouTube video of a guy, maybe you've seen it, where something happened to him and then he has constant orgasms. And it doesn't matter where he is, like every minute he'll have an orgasm. Have you seen that video? And I know I shouldn't laugh, but it makes me laugh.
He has an orgasm every
minute, like all day, every day. So
good Lord, God. I can't even it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Like, is it a physical thing or a mental thing? Or is it both?
Mental.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking, like, does he look at something and it arouses him every second and then that causes it? Or is it just is it there you go, he's taking Viagra by the looks of it. Yeah. Keep going, Kieran. You do well. Yeah. No, that's fascinating. That then, I suppose, isn't it? You know, whether it's a physical thing or a mental thing. You know.
It's probably both. There's some, yeah. But okay, so getting back on the, so go look up that video. And I know I shouldn't laugh, but it did make me laugh. Okay, back to Phantom of the Opera, because I thought of something, and maybe you've seen this. There is a 1980s movie, like probably late 1980s, called Phantom of the Mall. Have you seen
Oh yeah,
that?
yeah,
You've
yeah. I've seen it. Yeah,
Okay.
Eric's Revenge. Yeah, it's Phantom of the Mall. Yeah, yeah. Have you seen it, Amy? Yeah, or have you curious about seeing it?
Well, this is how like my brain was distracted or something, because I thought, oh, a movie about the mall in the 80s. I'm going to watch this because it's so retro. So I'm watching it and I'm like, this reminds me of Phantom of the Opera. And of course I'm like, duh, look at the title. Of course it's supposed to be like Phantom of the Opera. But yeah.
Yeah.
Her boyfriend, her dead boyfriend sort of controls her.
Yeah, it was done by the people who did those Toxic Avengers movies. What are they called now? Tromeo, I think they are. They're called. They did Toxic Avengers movies.
Huh.
And that's like a cult kind of thing. And it was I think they had permission to shoot in a mall, and they had to construct that was a blank page as far as that was concerned. You can do whatever you want. So they decided on that to put that in. But yeah, it's very kind of 80s cult movie trashy kind of funniness, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's
it
like,
has
you know,
all that. Yeah, if you love, I don't know if you've seen Stranger Things, but I really got into Stranger Things when I finally started watching it. And because it does capture that sort of 1980s that I've never seen or felt beyond having been there and been, you know, they really captured it. And I thought in the music and just the storyline was fantastic.
Yeah.
I really loved it. And so something like that, when you see a movie like Phantom of the Mall, it has that authentic 80s feel of the mall. And I love malls. And there's just something about that. Anyway, yeah, it's cheesy. I think you have to watch every 80s movie with this thought. Yeah, it's going to suck a little, but in a good way. You know, it's always going to have that cheesy factor, but it's the 80s.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, that's what I like about Stranger Things, is that it celebrates 80s culture, doesn't it? But it's kind of like the kind of the idealization of it. So it can take things from the 80s and like concentrate on like specific things on what made them great. Mm-hmm. So like actual things from the 80s, there's a lot of stuff in it that you think, oh, I don't like this bit or whatever, or you know, that kind of thing. Like we were talking the other week about Fast Times at Ridgemont High. That for me is like kind of like even though like I wasn't around that long in the 80s, that for me is kind of like sort of the celluloid kind of perfection when it comes to it. It's got all like kind of thing you'd expect from like an 80s film. And that.
It's one of those films where I think it mirrored a lot of what was happening at the time, but it also created a lot, because kids in small towns would see that movie and be like, oh, well, you know, I want to live that life, you know. So I think it's a great movie. And I have to say, Jennifer Jason Leigh, she was so good in that movie.
Oh, yeah.
So young. But I thought the way that she portrayed a girl who, it's not that she wanted to be promiscuous. She was lonely. Like, she was lonely. Her parents were always gone. Her brother was busy. And she was looking for something. And she thought older boyfriend guy would teach her what she wanted to know. And then she got used. And that was the sad story of how a girl gets used over and over again. And she finally has to be like, enough. And like, what's my value here? I'm just letting these guys use me. And it's so sad with the guy, you know, I wanted to like the guy that she did end up with the nice guy, right? With the nerdy guy. He was the nice guy.
She got there in the end, didn't she? And that's a good point. Like, she had an idea of where she wanted. She had an idea of where she wanted to be and what she had to do to get there, didn't she? You know, like, and then when she got there, she realized that wasn't the answer, so to speak. And that, but Jennifer Jason Leigh for me is one of the most underrated screen performers of all time. A lot of it is because she's kind of, she's like, you know, kind of reclusive in many ways and stuff, and she's turned down a lot of high-profile stuff. But I don't think she's ever been given the credit that she deserves. Have you seen Flesh and Blood?
I don't think so. If I have, it's been a while.
It's a medieval. It's, how can I say it? What would I describe it? It's a medieval thriller with Rutger Hauer and she's in it. And of course, she was in The Hitcher with him as well. Do you remember that film, The Hitcher?
Probably, yeah. I've heard of it. I've heard of it. She was also in
Have you ever?
Kansas City. She,
That's right. Yeah, she is,
yeah,
isn't she? Yeah, Eric Stoltz is Eric Stoltz in that. Is
yeah.
Andrew
He's a great
McCarthy.
actor. He's a really great actor. I really like him.
Yeah, yeah. But you know the story about Eric Stoltz in Back to the Future?
No.
Well, he was cast to play. Well, they wanted when Back to the Future was created by Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale, because they just had success with Romance in the Stone, and they had this script, Back to the Future, and they wanted Michael J. Fox, but he was busy on Family Ties, I think his sitcom was. He was on, and so they went with Eric Stoltz, but Spielberg had greenlit it because he responded to the comedy, and he felt it was a good comedy, and they cast Eric Stoltz, and it's one of the rarest things. They filmed about 70% of the film, and decided that it just wasn't working at all. And it's one of the few times that far into production where the original footage has been like kind of junked, and they started over again with Michael J. Fox as Marty McFly, because they felt that as good as Eric Stoltz is, he didn't come to grips with the comedic elements of the script.
Yeah, you know.
And
yeah, keep talking.
yeah, I'm just saying that. Yeah, he didn't come to grips with the comedic elements of the script and that. And well, I mean, like, there's some scenes in it now still in it, which is Eric Stoltz, but basically everything that they recorded pretty much to a point had to be re-recorded once Michael J. Fox became available. I often wondered how Stoltz, because that was the biggest hit of 1985. That was the biggest money maker. I wonder how that must have felt for him. Even, you know, I imagine it'd be hard not to get affected by something like that. You know, probably the Pete Best thing again, isn't it?
But here's how I look at it, because I have seen him in other movies where around that same time where he did well. He did Some Kind of Wonderful with Mary Stuart Masterson. No, who's that one next? Okay, Leah Thompson. He did films, and he's also done some historical movies around that. And he did Mask. Remember, he was in Mask.
That's good. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sure he was upset, but at the same time, he had a lot of other things going on, and he was in some good films from what I've seen. Yeah. Well,
he was in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, wasn't he? He was Spicoli's friend. You know, the stoners in it, and that. And, well, how many? Well, I don't know. So there's lots of stars in that who became famous. Like, I mean, like Jennifer in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. There's Jennifer Jason Leigh, Sean Penn, Judge Reinhold, Phoebe Cates.
Yeah.
It's like. Did you ever see The Outsiders?
Yes. Yeah, I love that. I love the book.
Yeah.
I love the writer. That's one of my favorite writers.
I have read the book. I was going to ask you. Yeah, would you recommend the book? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great book.
Yeah. Is the book better than the film, or it's like
it's pretty close?
Does the film do a good job?
See, she wrote that when she was like 16, and somehow, I don't know how she got an agent, but an agent got it, and it was published, and so it was a big hit. And then, you know, so the movie follows the book pretty close. It's just she wrote about how in her high school there was two different groups. But I can't remember what they. Yeah.
It's like the Greasers, isn't it? The kind of I know, you know. I know Francis Ford Coppola said he wanted to do it because, like, he said that people have become enamored with the idea that the 50s was all just like Happy Days, you know, the sitcom, and that when there was like a kind of more ethereal kind of like sort of more grittier, like sort of part of the culture as well, and that was a way to show it in that film. I'll have to read the book. I hadn't actually realised that it was a woman who wrote it, because it seems like a kind of masculine kind of.
That's how she was. She's sort of a tomboy.
I know that's right. Yeah, that kind of. But the casting, that's amazing, isn't it? You know, like Tom Cruise, Matt Dillon, Patrick Swayze, what's the name?
Ralph
C. Thomas Howell.
Yes,
Ralph Macchio. Yeah.
Pony Boy.
Yeah.
Pony
the Soda Pop, isn't it? I can't remember. Soda Pop, Pony Boy.
There's
Dallas.
several of her books. very tight little books. Her writing's very tight, concise. She doesn't have extras in her books. And you read them and they're just full of epiphanies. I mean, that's really what I love is I'll read through them and they're teenager books, but the epiphanies are fantastic. And she'll have those little things like one guy, they call him Sony because he listens to his earphones all the time, or Eminem because he's always eating M&M, things like that, the little details. And she's just so good at it. She's good at that capturing the feeling of what that turmoil of the teenager. She wrote a book called Tex. They took his pony away, but she creates that social circle, and I don't know. I love all that. It's a great writer.
Who would you say? Do you have a favorite author? It's like, has there been anyone who? She's one of them, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But I also liked, and he's gone now, Larry McMurtry, who is known for his cowboy books like Lonesome Dove. But he also wrote these long, what you call mainstream fiction about just, whimsical. Okay, there's this book that he wrote called Some of My Friends Are Going to Be Strangers. And for the very second I started reading that. Have you ever heard that? Have you ever read that book? It's a great.
I haven't read the book, no. I'll have to. I'll under your recommendation. Yeah. So Larry McMurtry, did you say that's the author? Just in case anyone's listening, they want to read it themselves.
But also, I love Jane Austen, and I love all of that. I'm a big fan of all those type of things. And I love. Who's the guy? See, it's my brain, my headache. When I have these migraines, my brain feels like it's melted a little bit for a day. Who's the guy who wrote one of my favorite authors? He wrote called Truman Capote. Truman Capote. His writing is so beautiful. I love him. And what's funny about him, and I know we've gone way off topic, but he kind of got into a period of his life where he had a lot of addictions, and his friends, he was looking for money, and he was still writing all these short stories. Well, he was commissioned to write a certain amount of short stories, and he made up this story, and he was on the Tonight Show talking about it, about a small town where people were being killed by snakes who had been injected with methamphetamines. So he's on the Tonight Show talking about that. They would cut off the rattles and put them in someone's car, and then someone would go out in their car and then get bit and die. And as I'm watching him tell it, he's like, and I'm gonna write. He was like famously gay. He wrote Breakfast at Tiffany's. Anyway, Truman Capote. He's telling the story. I just love his writing. And he's telling the story about these rattlesnakes that killed people in the town. He's like, and no one knows this story, and I'm going to put it out. And it's just, I still have to do all my.
That's a brilliant impression, Amy.
and he's passed on, obviously. He died, And I said in my mind, he's lying. He's making all of this up. There is no such town, no rattlesnakes. He made up and I heard in my psychic ear, you're right, or whatever. You're good. So I just thought that. Anyway, he's one of my. As you see how excited I get, I love Truman Capote. He probably wasn't a fun person to hang out with all the time because he was very catty and petty sometimes. I'm sure. I don't think that's a stretch to say that. He had his problems. Probably, as a writer, I really truly admire his writing and tenacity.
Yeah, what little I'm familiar, like I've been with him. I've always been impressed with it myself. And that. Have you seen Murder by Death?
Yes. Yeah.
The Peter Sellers sort of Cluedo film. Well, he's in that, isn't he? Truman Capote. He steals the show in the film.
I'll have to.
I hope I haven't ruined anything for you there, but he's in it anyway. He's well known to be in it. What did you think of Philip Seymour Hoffman? Did you see the movie about him?
He did a great job. Yeah, he did a great job. And what that movie showed was how it showed how. Okay, almost. What's the one where the famous word? Okay, there's another one though. It's a very dark movie. Yeah. There's another one about Truman when he goes to Kansas, and it's with Sandra Bullock, who plays the To Kill a Mockingbird writer. They were best friends, and the little British guy, you know who I'm talking about. He plays him. Have you seen it?
Toby Jones, I think his
Yeah,
name is, isn't it? Yeah,
he
yeah,
does such a
yeah,
good. Yes, when I saw that, I
yeah.
was practically cheering. I thought that one did not get as much attention, but that movie showed how Truman went as this person who'd never had his childhood healed, and all this trauma, and being gay and being different and all of that, and how he fell in love with these murderers that he was, interviewing to
Yeah,
go to the
yeah,
prison. And the James Bond, Daniel Craig, plays one of the, like, Percy or whoever.
that's right. Yeah,
And I
yeah,
really think that's what broke Truman Capote, because he fell in love with this murderer, this prison mate who'd killed
yeah.
this family. And when they got killed, he'd made a promise that he would help them, and then he failed. And he really loved him, and I think that was what broke him the rest of his life. I honestly feel that. And he took on some of his energy too. So yeah,
Right.
that's a
So,
great
so that
movie.
broke his heart.
That
Yeah,
really showed to me. Yeah, I like that one better.
yeah. I know what you mean. Probably because the Academy was behind the push for the Academy Awards. They were behind the push for the Philip Seymour Hoffman one.
Okay.
But I remember at the time the Toby Jones one over here getting sort of better praise, but going under the radar. So I have to catch that. Is Daniel Craig good, isn't it?
Yeah, he's really good. And if everybody's seen him as James Bond, and he's great, but he's really good in that role. He really should have gotten an Oscar for playing.
Yeah,
Angus Percy.
Daniel Craig is an actor first and a movie star second.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the paradox of that is that he's playing probably the most fictional cinematic character of all time. But there's kind of the spotlight that comes with that he was never comfortable with, you could see. But
yeah,
I think Bond as a character clearly mattered to him. He obviously felt that he had to treat it with a certain amount of respect, and with a lot of respect. He has with utmost respect, and that was the only way that he could do it. It's funny, isn't it? It's like I say, kind of, he's not comfortable with everything that goes with kind of the promoting of it, but obviously the playing of the character was like we were talking about with the. Sorry to go off on a tangent here, Amy, but the thing that I always sort of keep in mind about James Bond, is basically how Paul McCartney wrote "Live and Let Die." He worked backwards from the title "Live and Let Die." It was it's when you were young, you used to say "Live and Let Live," but you've changed your attitude to the world now because you're James Bond now. So now you say "Live and Let Die," which I think is really clever. But yeah, certainly, like I said, Daniel Craig is an actor first and a movie star second, I would say.
I think so too. Yeah, you could see that in the Truman Capote movie. That's what opened my eyes. I was like, he's actually a really decent actor and not just Hollywood. Yeah, but who else? Speaking of James Bond and Daniel Craig, the guy Mads Mikkelsen, who plays the bloody-eyed antagonist. I couldn't stand to see him because of that role, because of the bloody eye, and every time I'd see him in something, I'd be like, oh god, I can remember. But I watched a movie where he played a sort of like a psychologist. Well, it's the king of Sweden, and he's his assistant, sort of doctor friend. Have you seen that? He's really.
I haven't seen it, but I know what you mean. Yeah. He's fantastic. He's like kind of. He owes back to kind of the sort of cinematic kind of villains of old, doesn't he? That kind of thing. But he's a really kind of, because I say that because he keeps getting cast as villains, which is another kind of unfortunate paradox, that you do something well and that you have to sort of recreate that all the time and whatnot. What I was going to say to you, Amy, was on the subject of Phantom of the Opera. I've always felt that Silence of the Lambs was sort of an exploration of the same thing.
Yeah, I could see that.
It's okay. Clarice Starling isn't an opera performer, an opera singer, but there's certainly 1 second, David. There's someone at the door. I'll be with you now.
Okay. Hi, Betty. Well, hello, Amy.
Can you hear me? I'll be with you now, Amy.
Yeah, still here.
Right, I'll be 1 second.
Okay.
This is an inconvenience, and
So anyway, movies and Phantom of the Opera. There's so many versions of Phantom of the. I'm sure there's a cartoon version out there if we looked hard enough. I'm sure we could.
I'm back. Just in time. Yeah, no, I was just saying that. I think. Sorry to cut you off there, Amy, but just going back to what I was saying, Silence of the Lambs for me is an exploration of the themes of Phantom of the Opera. It's like the emphasis is different, but in the sense that in Phantom of the Opera, where Eric has got this obsession with Christine, and he wants to empower her to become this opera star and stuff like that. It's similar with Silence of the Lambs, in that people don't realise as sick and twisted as it is a love story there between the two. Although, you think that's where it's going. You think that there's certainly there's an attraction there, whether it's full blown or not.
Yeah.
But it's the I know people say, I don't like Silence of the Lambs and stuff like that. It's one of my favourite films, and I thought Anthony Hopkins was brilliant in it. But when you take into consideration that he knows all along who the killer was, and it's he could tell Clarice Starling in the first scene who Buffalo Bill is and where he is, and that. But at that point, he's formulating plans for his own escape. And if he was to tell her he lives at this address, you go and get it. He'd never see it again. She'd never have to go back in an interview.
Yeah.
So it kind of plays on like the audience expectations. You think, this is an obsession. He's obsessed with it. He's going to get. Keep falling down here. Sorry, Amy. Yeah. There's an obsession, and at some point Hannibal's going to get out of jail and he's going to kill Clarice Starling. But it's not that at all. He's drip feeding that information till the day comes where he can escape himself. But then at the same time he knows what's going in the bit. It's a bit more. It's explained better in the book. I think the Robert Harris book, in that the sexism that exists in the CIA, or that word again, in the FBI at that point, the sexism that exists within there is Hannibal Lecter as a character is repulsed by it, and he can't understand why Clarice Starling, with all the qualifications that she has, why she isn't getting the same opportunities as the men who work there, and that becomes a quandary to him, and he wants us to do well, and that so he empowers her. He sort of it's interesting as well. It all comes from within her. It's like it's he's not conning her in any way. He is right. She does have it within her to be able to solve the riddle and whatnot, and that becomes his obsession. But then, of course, I know everyone's probably seen Silence of the Lambs, but there's a twist as the audience fan, there's a twist in it that he isn't doing exactly what you think he's doing. He's sort of leading to his escape, and that's one of my favourite films too. Silence of the Lambs. I didn't much care for the sequel Hannibal, but I would be interested to see. I would be interested to see Hopkins and Jodie Foster do it again, together, to see to ignore the other sequels, just to see what the relationship it would be like. I'd be interested to see that.
Well, she's in a show, and we'll have to wrap this up soon because I need to eat something. But let's see, she's in a new show where it's kind of like Fargo or something, where it's a cop drama in sort of a desolate landscape, and so she is acting again. So maybe they will do something together, and that'd be
It'd be good I think it'd be good to see. I mean, that's one of my all-time favorite endings to the. Keep saying this. The book is better than the film. In the book Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal Lecter's being physically not tortured, but they're intimidating him. The guards where he works, they're like they're bullying him essentially, and that. So that it doesn't come over as well in the film, but it's still the last line. I'm having an old friend for dinner. That's it's exactly what he's going to do. In the book, there's no question why he's doing it, but in the film, he's going to kill him eventually. There's a gruesome ending to this. Sorry, Amy, but I'm just saying, just to round it up to Phantom of the Opera, I think it's that tale by Gaston Leroux. Its influence can be seen in lots of films like that, like you said, Beauty and the Beast and things like Silence of the Lambs. And also, you do look a bit like Julianne Moore, I think.
I'm Julianne Moore. I love Julianne Moore. She's in a movie right now. Yeah, she's a great actor. She was one of those actresses where I was like, you know, but every time I've seen her in anything, she's really fantastic. She really, she's really good.
And again, like Daniel Craig, I think she's an actress first and a movie star second, you know, and she's really put in like the sort of the hard graft, so to speak, and you know, and that. So anyway, do you have to go now then, Amy? Yeah?
Well, I better eat. You know, my headache. It
Don't leave me.
But yeah, I gotta go
Please.
eat something, and I gotta get started outside.
Okay. Well, it's been good talking to you as always, and whatnot.
It's nice seeing everybody, Heather and Warrior Girl. Thanks, and Victor, even Victor.
Baby sex, whatever that meant. Do you know what that meant, Amy?
It's right here. I don't know what he's saying. I don't think he's saying that. He's just, it's still there.
Baby sexy. Yeah. There's a riddle to that, yeah. Answers on a postcard. Yeah.
All right.
Okay then. Well, it's been enjoyable as always, Amy.
Yeah.
And I'll see you next time.
All right. Well, I'll shut this down.
Love you.
Well, hold on.